for Monday, April 12th, 2021. At this time, Mrs. Bobbitt, would you please put finance into executive session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Finance Committee to convene into executive session to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal finance statements of an applicant for economic development assistance involving public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project, and that this executive session is necessary to protect the interest of the applicant and the possible investment or expenditures of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G8.
Could you repeat that?
All in one breath. One breath.
Just kidding.
The executive session should include the following: finance chairman, members of the finance committee, council president, council members, law director, mayor, auditor, service safety director, treasurer, city engineer, wastewater superintendent, stormwater director, and LPA economic development director.
May I get a second on that?
I second.
I need an affirmative vote from Mrs. Bobbitt.
Yes.
Affirmative vote from Mrs. Kreitz.
Yes.
I vote yes. We are in executive session. Well done, Wally.
Right off the side.
Mr. Stoughton. We are now back to the regular order of business. First item on tonight's agenda that's not an executive session is Resolution 4721. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter an agreement to complete a compensation study for all non-union and management positions within the city. The expense is not to exceed $35,000. I assume, Mr. Uhl, you're going to want to talk about this since you're kind of heading that up, or?
What is it? Oh, sure.
It's the compensation study.
I sure will, and I don't see Ms. Nyheiser tonight. I know Paul has worked on this as well, and so this is the legislation that allows the administration to go out and enter into a contract to facilitate that study that we talked about at the last meeting. And there seemed like there was some, willingness to do this and move forward, an understanding of the need for that. And so, Service Safety Director Martin, I'll see if I'll pass it back to the chairman, see if.
So we got a quote from Clemens Nelson, and that's one of their top shelf things that they do, very experienced in this. We've also seen that they've recently done this for some other communities in Ohio, especially what we've looked at in Central Ohio, and they're known for this. So it'll be a wonderful thing to see it done in a very professional way, exhaustive way, to put as you said, President Uhl, it's a time to do this and to do it right. So I would ask that you pass it tonight, suspend second and third reading so that we can engage in this, and it could maybe, I don't want to promise anything, but my goal is to see it less than 6 months to be done.
Any questions for Mr. Martin or Mr. Uhl? Yes, Mrs. Bobbitt.
So, when we talked a couple weeks ago, it was between 18 and, I think it was thrown out between 18 and, maybe we said 30. So you're saying that they've already sent this price in?
Yes,
I
they
mean,
did it.
I realize it says not to exceed 35, but does
Right.
that mean they've already said it's gonna be 35?
No, they've given us a low end to high end, as they just did a brief evaluation of what we're requesting. It could be less, it will not be more than this. We will manage that, and I can't give you a lock price. So it depends as they meet with us and as we expand that, but they're looking at it exhaustive wise, it will not go above that.
Okay, so I understand
Right.
now. It's probably how many hours they spend.
Correct.
Obviously.
And
Okay.
we have some rates about that and things that they do, so.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
Mr. Uhl?
Thank you, Mr. Stoughton. I'll just mention, you mentioned your goal is within 6 months. We must move forward with all due haste.
Yes.
Because I'm sure there's a ramp-up time, and so you take May to October, and it's budget time. And so
Yes.
we got to get it done.
Yes.
Further comments? Yes, Mrs. Auditor Nettles?
Quick question for you, Paul. Is it already budgeted in there? Do we already have something, is it already budgeted in the current budget?
We are pulling it out of the current budget, yes.
Okay, I just didn't know if
Right.
we had it, okay.
Further questions or comments? Mrs. Bobbitt, will you second this, please?
I sure will.
Will you ask for suspension?
I sure will.
Awesome, so we'll go suspension on temporary resolution 4721. Moving on, the next item is resolution 4821. That's a resolution to amend the permanent resolution 13119, authorizing the Service Safety Director to award a construction contract for the 5th, 6th Forest Road Sewer Separation Project. This is coming through water pollution. Mr. James?
Yes, I'd like to yield some time to Stephen Wellstead to give us a little more detail on this.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. With the 5th, 6th Forest Road project, of course, that was a storm sewer separation project that was constructed last year. So the project is completed. We're just working with the contractor on negotiating and finalizing the last couple of claims on this project. All of the claims except for 2 have been settled, and we're very close on the other ones, but based on the pricing we're looking at, the total contract amount is going to end up being more than what was authorized by that legislation back in 19. City Council authorized up to 3.2, and I'm asking up to 3.31 million so we can get those finalized and finish the project out.
Questions for Mr. Wellstead? Mr. James?
One quick one, you're still under budget on that entire project, is that correct, Steve?
I guess with regards to under budget, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
What you initially thought the cost would be versus what we've had to spend to get it done?
Oh, I don't have those numbers, unfortunately. I know the original contract was about 2.9, but I think that did come in lower than the estimated engineer's estimate, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
And I know the other 2 contractors that bid were like almost $1 million more, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly. So yeah, I think we got a pretty good price on that. And even with the claims that we have, I think it's still a pretty good number overall.
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Your timing, Mr. James?
That'll go 2 readings? I
Yes, 2,
believe?
please,
Okay.
is what we're asking.
And who is your second?
I'm not sure whether it's Becky or Orman.
Pick one.
Orman, would you like
There
to
we
second?
go. Mr. Hall is the winner.
Yes.
We will go, thank you, Stephen. We'll go 2 readings on 4821. Next item I have is Resolution 4921. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for the design phase of the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project. This is coming through water pollution. Mr. James?
Yes, and I'll yield to Stephen a little bit on this one as well.
Yeah, thank you. So, again, we have this plant replacement, water treatment plant replacement there in Miller Park. And the engineer has been working on the preliminary study phase, and we want to move right into the design phase once they wrap that up. And the number they're telling us is that they're looking at about $2.2 million right now is what that engineering contract is going to be to design the new water treatment plant there in Miller Park. So asking for approval for that so we can get that contract signed and keep them moving.
Questions? Seeing none, Mr. James, what is your timing and your second, please?
I think Ms. Teener will be the second for that one.
And your timing?
2 readings.
2 readings, and Mrs. Teener as the second. Thank you.
Thank you.
So 2 readings on 4921. Next item I have on tonight's agenda is Resolution 5021. That's a resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for West 6th Avenue improvements. This is coming through Public Works. Mr. Schoonover.
Kurt's approaching the bench here to speak to this real quick.
Good evening. 6th Avenue, we're working on our next STP street, which is 6th Avenue. This phase is the first of 3 phases where we're gonna work east from Roosevelt, which is right by Anchor Hawking over to Cherry. We last fall applied for OPWC grant to do this first phase, which moves up the next 2 phases 1 year because we were using a different pot of money, the STP funds. So really good news, we got some outside money to do some more paving. So we're asking to go out to bid, and this is fiscal year 2022, and so the first day that you can start awarding a contract or start working is July 1st, which is what I want to do, so that we can give them a full season and hopefully get better bids. And the bids we've been seeing on our asphalt projects are really low right now, so I want to get this thing out to bid and get it fixed. Any questions?
I have one, but I'll let, you said this is 3 phases? You say this is a 3-phase?
We've got 6th Avenue, we're gonna do from Roosevelt to Memorial, and then from Memorial to Maple, and then from Maple to Cherry.
Okay,
Those next 2 phases are using STP dollars,
okay.
our federal dollars. Because we got the grant for this one, next year we can do phase 2 instead of phase 1. So
Gotcha.
it moves everything up 1 year.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Other questions? Mr. James?
Just one real quick. Will any of the new sewer lines interrupt that? Will we have to tear up a new road to do that?
No, we will not unless there's some kind of a break or something unforeseen happens. But there one time talking about a water line, I think we've got that worked out. That'll
Okay. That's
not,
what I should have
that's
asked.
probably what you're
Water line,
thinking of,
that's what I
yeah.
was thinking of.
Further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Schoonover, who's your second and number of readings?
You are my second, please.
Oh, yes.
And then I know we talked about it on Friday, but how fast did you want to do that?
I can go 3 readings. I can't start until July 1st.
Okay.
I don't have to be in a hurry with it.
And then you'll be able to get us a better idea too, or do you already know this 74-26 split? I see it says this, the grant funds will cover the 537. Is that's definite?
Yeah, the maximum that we can get from, for the
Maximum.
grant money is the 537.
Okay.
092, 537,000. After that, it's a 74-26 split. Once we go over that, it's all local money, 3 mil money.
Okay. So we'll do 3 readings to your point.
Very good. All right. Thank you, sir. We'll go 3 readings on Resolution 5021.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item I have is Resolution 5121. That's a resolution to appropriate, a resolution to fund the approved changes in the fire department contract into the fire department budget. The additional $55,006 will fund the Ems Stipend bonus for 60 employees and increase uniform allowance for each. This is coming through safety. Mrs. Bobbitt.
Thank you, Mr. Stoughton, and I believe we've got the fire chief standing at the podium to explain all this.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you were exactly right, Mr. Stoughton. 30,000 of that is the EMS stipend. That's a one-time stipend for everyone in the department that was on the department at the time the contract was signed. And then the other element of that is uniform. It was bumped up to be comparable with the other collective bargaining units, so it gives an extra $200 to those employees. In addition to that, I've asked for a little bit of uniform allowance for any new hires that we have coming forward. So that would satisfy one element of the contract.
Question? Yes, Mrs.
I do
Stevens.
have a question. So what is it for the uniform allowance? Is it 1,000 they're
No,
getting?
it was 900.
It was 900, so it's,
And now it's 1,100.
okay, so let me just ask, are uniforms, do they have to buy their uniforms
Yes.
each year?
Yes, they have to buy them each year.
They have to actually purchase them,
Well, we give them an allowance, and we have a uniform inspection.
okay?
So one of the things about our uniforms, and Assistant Chief Matlin can speak to this as well, we have a Nomex brand. Those things are about $130 a piece, and the shirts are about the same. So when they get their checks, we go through our inspections, and they have to replace those as needed. Very similar to the other safety forces.
Other questions? Mrs. Bobbitt?
So Mr. Matlin is going to be my second. And I would like to ask for suspension tonight, as this was, it's in the contract, and this is a stipend that's going to the firefighters, or EMS. I'd like to get it passed this evening if I could.
You can if you like.
I'm gonna ask for suspension.
There we go. All right. So we will ask for suspension with Mr. Matlin as the second on 5121. Thank you. Next item I have is Ordinance 1021. This is an ordinance to amend the non-union pay ordinance to combine 2 current positions in the water department into a single position. We got a note from Mrs. Nyheiser today. This is Mr. Nixon or Mr. Martin. Do either one of you want to talk about this?
So, she's off today, but she had this scheduled a while ago. It's not because she had this 2 things tonight, but she actually is off today. with
That's
the
just good
family.
planning.
Yeah, I mean, not that they don't want to be here, but yes, we received notice that the 2 positions in the water department are retiring, and we think it's a good opportunity to move forward with hiring one that can do both those duties. And so we're asking for this to come in, and one of the reasons we want to do it is because we need to get that person hired. They are going to be leaving the first part of June, and also as we can introduce this job description to put it in what we just passed earlier, to have that position evaluated with all the non-union and management ordinance. So we'd like to present this job description in light of that. So we're asking from 2 positions down to 1 to make this a administrative assistant 10.
Questions for Mr. Martin? Any issue with suspension? I mean, anytime you can consolidate 2 into 1, that's a good thing. And then pay it appropriately is a good thing. And then, of course, then we'll kick it to compensation review to make sure it's titled and compensated appropriately. So with that, we will ask for suspension. Mrs. Kreitz, will you be the second on this, please?
Yes.
All right, so we will suspend on ordinance 1021. Are there any departmental updates this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the council, I sent out an email to my committee tonight. Friday, I received an invoice from Pipeworks. Back in February, somebody reported sewage on the ground out on State Route 37 East. It appeared that the force main from One Right was leaking, so we contacted them. They got a hold of Pipeworks. They excavated the hole, and what we found out is our work back in, can't remember when that was done, a long time ago, that we did the East Main Street loop, damaged that lateral, and it just now caused it to a point of failure and causing the water to come to the surface. So Pipeworks was already in the middle of the work, finished the job, and Friday, finally, they did that in March. It was late February or early March, and finally Friday I got the invoice, so I'll be asking for passage. Next meeting, hopefully a suspension so we can pay Pipeworks and keep One Right out of the mix. It's going to be roughly $9,300 for them to excavate and repair that force main. But I just wanted to let everybody know now, so when it comes in next week, you'll all be familiar with that piece.
Okay, questions for Mr. Nixon? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Other updates this evening?
Yes. Councilman Stoughton?
Yes.
I'd like to present to you our new code enforcement director. Erica Todd has worked in the mayor's office as his executive administrative assistant. Since she's been there, she's been working closely with code enforcement and interacting with both our part-timers as well as our previous Sean Fowler. We have 3 good candidates, and they were all definitely qualified, but we have chosen Erica Todd, who her last name used to be something else, but she recently got married. And but she was able to come back home after her marriage because she was in Mexico for that wedding. But we're grateful for her. And Erica, if you just briefly just mention a little bit about yourself as you go forward as our director for code enforcement.
Hi, everyone. As Paul mentioned, I'm Erica. I started my career at the ripe age of 21, dispatching for the Highway Patrol. I was there for 11 years. I then went to the Fairfield County Municipal Court and became a probation officer. I was there for 8 years. And then the past 2 years, I've had the privilege of working with Mayor Scheffler and Sean in code enforcement. Very excited for this position. Huge shoes to fill. Thank God I have Sean as a friend to help me through all of this. I'm excited and just thank you.
Yes. Feel free to reach out to her as some of you come across issues there. But.
Yeah, I have Sean's cell phone number. So everyone, I mean, as Melody can tell you, even if you left a voicemail a month ago, I'll call you back.
Anyone, comments, any questions for, yes, Mr. Rule?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the first day of your job, what did you break and how much did it cost?
Well, I have not broke anything yet.
Yet. Well, I was
Yet
just
are the
checking
key
because your
words.
predecessor, you know, on his first day of his job, you know.
That was Bill, though.
Well, yeah, we'll blame Bill. That's fine. Welcome. We're glad to have you with us. And,
Thank you.
Congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
Mrs. Teener?
You
Hang
need
on,
to
we're not done yet.
talk about the 2 gyms that work there. They are just the 2 part-time,
Did you say
Troublemakers?
gems?
the 2 gyms, yes.
Gyms.
They really do a good job.
Yes,
They
they
do. They're
do.
just part-time.
They are amazing, and I am very thankful for them. I currently, since Sean left, I started doing a lot of his job even before I took the position. So to have them has been huge as I try to do all of Mayor's stuff and try to learn part of Sean's job.
Very good. Any further comments?
And just to say, she truly does have the cell phone that Sean had under code enforcement. And Sean adopted the number that Bill had, so those numbers are still staying the same.
Yeah, so please reach out at any time.
All right. Well,
Some of those texts were for Sean, not for you that I saw.
Oh, okay. I'll remember that.
well, congratulations, Erica.
Thank you.
Good luck. Further departmental updates. Yes, Auditor Nettles.
Next council meeting, I will be bringing in, as you well know, how I love new funds, but the new Recovery Act money that's coming in from the federal government mandates a new fund to be set up. I can't use last year's COVID-19 fund. I have to set up a brand-new fund and correlating accounts to facilitate those monies when they do come in.
Thank God numbers are into infinity, right? So you can set funds up into perpetuity.
I was hoping I tried to use an existing one, that will be no, but no, I was told by the state auditor that I must set up a new fund.
What is this fund called? What's this thing officially called? The money you're getting?
American Recovery Act, I think is what it's referred to.
I'm gonna call it the latest version of the American Recovery Act. Okay. Further updates?
That is all, Mr. Stoughton.
Might be others out there. Well, seeing none, I will now defer to President Uhl for tonight's meeting prep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and let me just briefly say welcome back. You've done a great job facilitating the first meeting after a year and a half or two of not being here, even though we are now 27 minutes past when we were supposed to finish.
Remember, it's my first meeting.
Your first
Sean
meeting.
broke something, Erica's gonna break something.
I know.
And
Similar
I broke
stuff.
your meeting,
Yeah,
so.
that's all right.
And
Thank
it's
you.
probably gonna cost me dinner.
Yeah,
So-
yes, it is. Yes, it is. If we ever get out of here,
I
it is
know.
going to cost you. Yes. So, all right. Just very quickly, we did receive email that has been requested that temporary resolution 41-21 be withdrawn, and so that is the plan for this evening. And I think Mr. James, you're the sponsor of that, so you'll be making a motion to withdraw.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. So we will work our way through that when we get there. Temporary ordinance 11-21 updates some of the building code, and so this coming through the law committee, Mr. Hall.
Yeah, we have a series of ordinances that we're gonna hold off and discuss in our law committee meeting on Wednesday. We do have one ordinance that's coming through, but I'm not sure if that's one you're asking about, I'm sorry.
Well,
Did you say 921?
1121 is.
Okay, yeah, no, we're holding off on 1121.
I'm
Well,
sorry?
you can't.
Yeah, I think we're gonna introduce them tonight. What we are, originally, there was some discussion or whatever, suspension on these, but, they can go 2 or 3 readings. As some of you who've been on council for a number of years know, this is just, every once in a while, we gotta update the technical code. So, a lot of these things are whatever we adopt from the state, or like the International Property Maintenance Code, those sort of things. So, this is just bringing us up to date on the adoption of those things. And we're gonna talk about it a little bit more at our law committee meeting on Wednesday, but we'd like to introduce all of them tonight and, get the ball rolling. But, I think as you look through it, if you have questions, of course, reach out to us, but it's, stuff that, a lot of you have seen, before. Some of these codes or whatever, we have to go in and basically insert City of Lancaster and things like that into it, or fire chief instead of fire marshal or whatever, so that it applies to us. But
I don't want to belabor the point, but is this one of these we have to do kind of things? I mean, if we need to update the code so it matches, I'm just wondering why we wouldn't suspend tonight to move forward.
Just so, we can have a little, for some people that are new or whatever, we can have a little, and I think our plan is to have a discussion about it Wednesday at law committee, and then, hopefully with all of you looking at it, if you have questions, to send them to us, and, we're at maybe 2 readings or something to get these passed. I know, yes, it's not an exact science, because sometimes these things pass, and it takes us a while to actually, get to the updating stage of it, but we'll be fine.
President, well, yeah, just per the conversation that you and I had this afternoon, I did reach out to Stephanie Hall, and then I also had a conversation with Captain Seaschultz, and both parties were more than fine looking at this as 2 readings as opposed to 1.
Okay, so 2 readings on 1121, and who's your second?
I think my second would be Don on this.
Okay.
Yep. He's amenable.
So 1121 will be 2 readings, and Mr. McDaniel will be the second. So what others are we doing this for? Are we doing this for 1221?
Yes, all four of these,
All-
12, 13,
right.
and 14 will all be technical code.
All four, okay. So 1221 updates the maintenance property codes, 1321 updates the fire prevention code, and 1421 updates existing ordinances for private swimming pools. So we're gonna do all of these for 2 readings.
We are.
Okay, great. And who are your seconds on 12, 13, and 14?
So Don's got to do 12 and 14, is that right, Don?
Yes.
And Becky, if I can impose on you to do the other one?
So Ms. Teener will be 11 and 13, and Mr. McDaniel will be 12 and 14.
Yes.
Okay, very good. So just how you have it there, Clerk Sandy. All right, very good. We're seeing no other business. I'll pass it back to the chairman.
Are there any other items for finance? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
And we have a second. We are adjourned. It is 7:02.
The regular meeting of Lancaster City Council will begin at approximately 7:08. You like that? Approximately. Whenever we get back.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS, and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Good evening. Welcome to Lancaster City Council. Please join me in a word of prayer. Lord, here we are once again, thankful for this day and your many blessings, thankful for the season of Easter that we just came through. And now, Father, we pray that you would lead, guide, and direct us during this council meeting. Help us to rightly divide the work that is before us and do what is in the best interest of the citizens of Lancaster. Continue to protect our first responders in the city, all of our city employees, and our military men and women fighting around the world, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. I hereby call this meeting of Lancaster City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt.
Here.
Mrs. Kreitz.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. James.
Here.
Mr. Matlin.
Here.
Mr. McDaniel.
Here.
Mr. Schoonover.
Here.
Mr. Stoughton.
Here.
And Mrs. Teener.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all 9 members of Lancaster City Council are in attendance this evening, and let me just briefly pause and welcome Councilwoman Kreitz to your first official meeting, appointed on April 1st and sworn in taking the oath of office this past Friday, so an official member now, and we're glad to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Very good. Are there, well, let's read and dispose of the journal.
I'd like to present the regular meeting minutes dated March 22nd, 2021.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second?
A motion and a second to receive and file the journal. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports of city officials.
Email dated April 8th, 2021 regarding Public Works agenda submitted by Mr. Schoonover. Email dated April 12th, 2021 regarding draft meeting notice submitted by Mr. Stoughton. Email dated April 12th, 2021 regarding the Finance Committee agenda submitted by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second?
A motion and a second to receive and file reports of city officials. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there any communications?
There are two. Email dated March 28th, 2021 regarding the BZA public hearing submitted by Robert and Elizabeth Huffman, and an email dated April 12th, 2021 regarding the subway mask concern submitted by Mike Jones, Global Manufacturing Manager for Magna Seating. And that is it.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the communications.
Second?
Motion and a second to receive and file communications. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We do have a special presentation tonight. We'll welcome Miss Cruz to the podium, and she's going to give us a stormwater presentation and update. Miss Cruz, thank you for being here. Let's go. Forge ahead. It's flash. Am I supposed to hear it?
Usually I hear it quick.
Nope, I see the light flashing on.
There it comes on.
All right. Thank you all. I'm here tonight to talk about our proposed North Water Plant Replacement Project. This presentation tonight is part of the requirements from Ohio EPA for us to apply for loan funding for this project. So thank you very much for having us. The current situation at the Miller Park plant, it was built in 1925, so it's almost 100 years old. It was expanded in 1976, and since then we've just been doing operation and maintenance activities at the plant, including, as Mike talked to you, he's in the process of rebuilding filters, which this is the second time since I've been here in 20 years that he's done that. In 2019, the plant produced 2.44 million gallons a day. The well field at Miller Park has a capacity of 9.3 million gallons per day. And the treatment at the plant includes aeration, filtration, zeolite softening, which is an ion exchange process, and disinfection. Now, before I show you this next plant slide, the operators at the plant wanted to make sure that you didn't think that they weren't taking care of the plant. They were very concerned. They didn't want you to think that they weren't doing anything. And as you know, and as Mike's explained in the past, we do operation maintenance and keep the plant running and in good repair. It's just, as you can see, very old. So with age comes increased maintenance costs. We have increased water demands in the US 33 service area, changes in water quality needs. It gets very intertwined with our wastewater permit, and changes that we can make at the water plant will impact then our wastewater permit. We hear a lot about future treatment for emerging contaminants. Those are things like PFAS and microplastics and all kinds of different chemicals that we hear thrown around as emerging contaminants. So we want to be able to, in a 21st century, have a 21st century water plant that can deal with these things. And interest rates are really, really low now. So we're looking at OWDA interest rates this month were 0.6%, as opposed to the current bonds that we hold at 5%. And I think the South Water Plant bonds that we're paying off were at 6%. So what I'm going to tell you is, one of the things I gave you was this map. And in this map, I've indicated where the two existing water plants are. Those are the octagons, and then the triangles are general areas that we looked at for potential new plant locations and well fields. So the first option we looked at was renovating the existing plant. It's in an existing well field that has plenty of capacity. It's well integrated into the existing system, so we don't have any problems getting from the plant to our reservoirs out into the distribution system. And we have an established wellhead protection area. We've had that wellhead protection area for almost 25 years. And so Mike and Jake Pendleton, my office, have worked really hard with the businesses in the wellhead protection area to get them into compliance, to keep them registered. We've had a number of undesirable businesses, undesirable in the wellhead protection area businesses, move out. So we've got a pretty good control on that wellhead protection area. And so if we don't have to change that, that's a whole lot of businesses we don't have to interact with. The constant renovating it, the age of the facility, how would we keep the plant in operation as we're building a new plant, and then of course the treatment options that we would have. Our second option was what Ohio EPA calls regionalizing, and we looked at moving all the operations south to the south treatment plant. Again, it's an existing well field with capacity. It has room to expand. It has the treatment process we're looking at. The well field down there is less protected because it's not within the city. It's in Byrne Township. So they don't have the zoning protections that we have up here. Again, we would have to maintain operations down there while we're building or expanding the plant. We have very limited connection from the south water plant into the city, which is a major concern of us. There's a 1 4-mile water line that connects the two. So if we would lose that water line and all of our treatment was down at the south plant, we would be out of water. So that's a concern we have. And as I told somebody, I can't be just concerned about this expansion. I have to think about what happens in 2050 and where we may expand. So we're kind of holding the south water plant for a future expansion. Because while we have a lot of water, it's not infinite. Our third option was developing a new well field and treatment plant. It moves the well field out of the center of the city, which is great. Unless it's in the city, it's not as protected, so that's a concern. We have limited connections to the distribution system again. There's some other land uses that some of these facilities, some of these properties we wanted to use. It's an extra cost to purchase and develop the well field. And then we had considerations of where this new plant would discharge its wastewater, the concentrate from the system. And it has to be able to go to the Lawrence Street plant, and it has to be downstream from our combined sewer overflow area, because that's a whole nother set of EPA requirements that would be thrown off by this. The other thing with developing a new well field is we can't do it on the timeline that we're anticipating. So option 4 was constructing a new treatment plant at Miller Park. It's in the existing well field and wellhead protection area, which is great. Lots of connections to the distribution system. Again, that's great. We'll be able to manufacture water at the old plant while we're building the new plant, which is a major plus. The cons are, well, we'll still maintain a well field in the center of the city, and the land that we take for the water plant will be lost for other uses, and I'll come back to that. We looked at several treatment technologies. Again, our existing plan is aeration, filtration, ion exchange, and disinfection. So we're looking at keeping aeration, filtration. The real question was how we were going to soften the water, whether we go with ion exchange, whether we go with lime soda softening, or membrane treatment. So, at this point, I'm going to tell you that I gave you a paper called Screening Selections, and these are the screening items we used to come up with our alternative. So our selected alternative is to use the existing well field at Miller Park to construct a new water plant at the north end of the park and utilize membrane filtration for improved water quality. A lot of times as we talk about these emerging contaminants, it always comes up, membrane filtration will deal with these. Again, the existing well field, we don't have to buy any land. We can connect to the existing distribution system. One of the nice things is that the treatment train will be very close to what we have at the south plant, so there's some interchangeability on parts and things like that. The concentrate waste will go where the concentrate waste is going right now, into the sewer, into Lawrence Street, so that doesn't disrupt anything with any of our other permits or projects. We do get improved water quality, and as I said, standardized operations. So what's the impacts on Miller Park? And I'm going to tell you that these are the pictures out of the Ohio State study, so don't hold me to this. This is not what the park's actually going to look like. But we have been coordinating with Lancaster Parks and Recreation, and the reason that this was possible is because the Parks Department had already decided to move those athletic fields. I just can't get the park to drain. Those fields will never be dry. And so they have decided to move those fields and move Miller Park into a more passive recreation area. Once we get the plant laid out, we'll start a master plan for Miller Park. And we'll look at all the uses of the park and how everybody wants to use it, and what we may choose to do in there. We've set aside some money in the stormwater budget to naturalize part of the area and kind of create some wetland areas in there. So we know that's on the table, but everybody has been okay with this. At this point, we're not looking at anything south of the swimming pool, so there's no plans to move the swimming pool at this time, at least on our part. Again, I talked about 21st century treatment technology and preparing to meet these new standards. One of the things with switching to membrane filtration is it reduces dissolved solids and sodium in the finished water. So one of the handouts I gave you has some yellow, may have some yellow highlights. I forgot how I printed this. But it's a comparison between the north plant and the south plant. And so you can see things like the alkalinity is very different. The bicarbonate is very different. The total dissolved solids is very different, and a big drop in sodium. And sodium is what's going out in the water to our customers. So reducing sodium is a good, healthy benefit. Our initial study, and this was a really quick look last summer, had the project cost at about $40 million. And that includes some well field work that we probably will not use. So this is a really rough number at this point. We did borrow some money through bond anticipation notes to do the study that we're finishing up right now. We're looking at a $2.5 million design loan from OWDA, and that's kind of what's driving our schedule right now is the timing to get that design loan. Yes. And about $35 million for construction. And as I said, OWDA interest rates are great right now. So the effects on the rates, and I gave you some handouts. So there's a handout that shows the used calculations and what usage we expect between now and 2030, accounting for growth in the US 33 corridor. The second one is the debt service calculations. These are for our existing debt, and you can see where that falls off. And the note that we took, and then the Miller Park cost in there. And then the last is the summary of cost, revenue, and expenditures from now until 2030. That is retired, starting in 2022. If we can come up with some money, we'll start early calls on the bonds and get that debt out of the way. The operation cost for membrane filtration is actually cheaper than the existing ion exchange, which is a big savings to us. Our new loan payments won't start until 2026, so we have some breathing room in there that we can pay off old debt before we take on new debt. And the existing bonds that we took for the Rock Mill project and some other water improvements retire in 2029. So like I said, we're gonna try and pay those off early when we can. So I can't tell you what the expected user charges are gonna be. We're very comfortable that we're not going to lose money on this upgrade, and that we will be able to pay for it out of revenue. I just can't tell you, it's too soon. I can't tell you what Mike's budget's gonna be for next year at this point. Our schedule for this project, we're finishing up the study, and this presentation is part of that study. In May, after you pass the legislation that Stephen introduced tonight, we'll start design, and design will go from May until February. Then we get into the OWDA loan, and construction will actually start in July of '22. We'll have contracts by then. We won't actually start construction in the park until after football season of 2022. And the plant will be in operation July 1, 2024. If you or any member of the public have comments or questions, you can send them to Stephen. He's the project manager for this. And here is his address and email. This information is all available on the city website under the proposed North Water Plant project. And that includes this PowerPoint presentation. And I will take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cruz, for an informative presentation. I'd ask that you keep it to 15, and my clock has you just about right on the nose, and so I don't know if you practiced it or what, but very well done. Anyone have questions that they would like to ask Ms. Cruz? Yes.
Just one quick one, Denise. You kind of hedged a little bit on whether the rate structure we have right now will remain the same, or we might have to increase rates. You can't really answer that question, can you?
I can't right now, tonight. One of the things we'll be doing on both the water and the wastewater side is we will be having Red Oak, who does rate studies, come in and do a rate study, and then we'll be able to answer those. Of course, the rates are set by the Service Safety Director on the water side.
Right.
Very good. Other questions? Yes, Ms. Tina.
Actually, it's more of a comment. This term, this is the second time I've sat on this committee, and people do not realize what all Denise and Stephen and Mike and all them do. If you would sit and come and listen, and there are public meetings. It's pretty amazing what all you guys do and the budget you work with and that. So I really thank you guys for all you do.
Thank you.
Yes, I echo those things. You know, I turn on the tap and the water comes out, and that's it.
It's drinkable.
You know,
And you
I
can
know y'all make
flush.
that happen on your end. Yeah, Becky, when you flush, it goes. That's right. So we're glad for that. Other questions? All right, well, thank you very much, Ms. Cruz, and
All right.
again, you can find that presentation and the opportunity to comment with Mr. Wellstead's information on the website, and so if there's public comment or if any members of council have comment, you can submit to that email address.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on then through the agenda, are there petitions or memorials this evening?
There are none to be presented.
During this time at Lancaster City Council, we set time aside to allow the voters and taxpayers of the city to address City Council on any item or issue you would like. Is there anyone who would like to address Lancaster City Council this evening? All right, well, thank you all for being here tonight. Reports of standing committees.
Finance Committee meeting dated March 22nd, 2022, submitted by Mrs. Downhour. Water Pollution Control meeting dated March 10th, 2021, submitted by Mr. James. Finance Committee meeting dated April 12th, 2021, submitted by Mr. Stoughton. And finally, the Service Committee meeting dated February 5th, 2021, submitted by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive and file reports of standing committees. Before we call the question, let me just mention that the clerk reports having multiple meetings for which there aren't minutes for at this particular time. And so if you're a committee chair and you haven't been able to submit your minutes yet, if you could please do so the clerk can get the website updated, that would be very appreciated. Further discussion on standing committee meeting minutes? All those in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Are there reports of special committees?
There are none to be presented.
We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move to the reading of resolutions, beginning with the third reading of temporary resolution 41-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the South Water Plant Concentrate Line Improvement Project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
Mr. President, this time I would like to withdraw this particular resolution due to the fact that we've got, the bids that we had received were very much higher than what the estimates had been, and the group is now looking at a different way to assess the concentrate line project. So that's why we're withdrawing at this time.
Okay, is there a second?
Yes, I would second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to withdraw temporary resolution 41-21 from consideration. Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes?
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 41-21 has been withdrawn. We now have a series of resolutions for first reading, beginning with temporary resolution 47-21.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the General Fund 1001 for compensation study to be completed for the non-union and management positions within the city. Offered by Mr. Stoughton, seconded by Mrs. Bobbitt.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of resolution temporary 47-21.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary resolution 47-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'm asking for suspension so we can get this contract approved and get the project completed prior to the planning for the 2022 budget, which in theory should be impacted by the results of the study.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes?
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporary 47-21.
Second?
A motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 47-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Thanks.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 47-21 passes 9-0. Temporary resolution 48-21.
A resolution to amend permanent resolution number 131-19, authorizing the Service Safety Director to award a construction contract for the 5th, 6th Forest Rose Sewer Separation Project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mr. Hall.
Mr. James.
Just offering a brief summary, the project is essentially completed. This is just bringing up to date the requested change orders in the amount of about $110,000, bringing the new total to $3.31 million. And this is the first of 2 readings.
First of 2 readings on temporary resolution 48-21. Temporary resolution 49-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for the design phase of the North Water Treatment Plant Replacement Project, offered by Mr. James and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. James.
Yes, as we discussed in the Finance Committee meeting, this is something that we need to look at for quite a long time and ties in with the presentation made by Mr. Mies Cruz on the North Water Plant needing a replacement, actually. So this will start the ball rolling, and this is the first of 2 readings for that.
First of 2 readings then on temporary resolution 49-21. Temporary resolution 50-21.
A resolution authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for the West 6th Avenue improvement, offered by Mr. Schoonover, seconded by Mr. Stoughton.
Mr. Schoonover.
First of 2 readings, please.
First of 2 readings on temporary resolution 50-21. Temporary resolution 51-21.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate with the county auditor in the general fund 1001 for approved changes to the fire department contract, offered by Mrs. Bobbitt, second by Mr. Matlin.
Ms. Bobbitt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the 2nd and 3rd reading on temporary resolution number 5121.
Second.
Motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the 2nd and 3rd reading of temporary resolution 51-21. Discussion, Ms. Bobbitt?
No comment at this time.
Discussion on the motion to suspend. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Ms. Bobbitt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution number 5121.
Second.
A motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 51-21. Discussion, Ms. Bobbitt?
As it reads, this was a change in the contract. I don't know if city service director would like to speak on this, or fire chief would like to.
So we, per law, Chief's coming up here, and I think the ORC allows us to go to, I think it's age 40 to bring in a firefighter, but we, on our current ordinance, I think we have a lower age.
Yes.
And we are increasing the age to be up to 35. We decided not to go all the way up to, it says in the
The ORC says 41, by the age 41. The code said 31, now we've
Yeah.
changed it back up to 35. So if they've been appointed, to kind of clarify for you, we can hire somebody older than 36 if they've been appointed somewhere at another department prior to that age. If they've never been appointed to a department and they try to get on a department, at age 36, they would not be allowed.
We're on a different
Yes,
resolution
we're
right
on
now.
we're on the stipend.
We're on the resolution about.
Resolution
your-
5121.
That is my error.
All right, I was just
But
following
it
the
was,
lead.
it was nice that you said that.
All right, EMS stipend?
Yeah, the
Yes,
EMS
this
stipend.
just makes the contract whole. We were at $900 per year for a decade, maybe 2. This went up to $1,100. It makes it equal to a lot of what the other collective bargaining agreements have. So it allows us to give $1,100. $200, we've already paid them their $900, now we give them an extra $200.
And we're asking for suspension because it was in the contract, and we want to get it to the employees.
Further discussion on the motion to pass.
Thank you both.
I'm already looking ahead, I'm sorry.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary resolution 51-21 passes 9-0. We'll now move to the reading of ordinances, begin with the 3rd reading of temporary ordinance 9-21.
An ordinance to amend Lancaster Codified Ordinance Part 1 Administrative Code, Title 5, Administrative, Chapter 133, Fire Department, Section 133.09, Appointee Age Limitation, Waiver of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, offered by Mr. Hall and seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of ordinance temporarily numbered 9-21.
Okay, well, this is the third reading of 921.
No, it's a second reading.
Second.
Well, it says
Oh,
third reading
Do I have it
on,
on there wrong?
so this is the second reading.
Yeah, this is the second.
So we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 9-21. Mr. Hall,
I'll decline it this time.
further discussion or any discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 9-21.
Second?
Motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 9-21. Mr. Hall.
Yes, and this is the discussion that we were previously having where Chief Ward was being somewhat clairvoyant about the upcoming motion. I think the city's done a great job of sort of balancing the need for a larger pool of candidates, and also making sure that we have candidates or applicants that are physically able to do the work. So I think this is a really good move, and I think we need to move forward and pass the legislation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hall.
Yes.
Further discussion on the motion to pass? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 9-21 passes 9-0. We're gonna have first reading on a series of ordinances, beginning with temporary ordinance 10-21.
An ordinance to amend ordinance 3-21, repeal and replace existing 3-21, and to declare an emergency for the non-union pay ordinance. Offered by Mr. Stoughton, seconded by Mrs. Kreitz.
Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third reading of ordinance temporary 1021.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary ordinance 10-21. Discussion, Mr. Stoughton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The reason for suspension is we are taking two positions, two retiring positions, and we're combining them to a single position, which is a good thing. But those positions that are retiring retire in June. Therefore, we'd like to get this passed so they can start recruiting in time to get some training between now and retirement day.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Stoughton. Further discussion on the motion to suspend? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover? Mr.
Yes.
Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Motion to suspend carries 9-0. Mr. Stoughton.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporary 1021.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 10-21. Mr. Stoughton.
No, thank you.
Discussion on the motion to pass. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 10-21 passes 9-0. Temporary ordinance 11-21.
An ordinance of the City of Lancaster to repeal and replace existing Lancaster Codified Ordinance, Part 13, Building Code, Chapter 1303, Technical Code, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mr. Hall and seconded by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, one of two, please.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 11-21. Temporary ordinance 12-21.
An ordinance of the City of Lancaster adopting the 2021 edition of the International Property Maintenance Code, regulating the conditions and maintenance of all property, buildings and structures, and repealing and replacing existing Lancaster Codified Ordinance 1303.01D, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Hall.
One of two, please.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 12-21. Temporary ordinance 13-21.
An ordinance of the City of Lancaster to repeal and replace existing Lancaster Codified Ordinance 1525.01, adoption, and 1525.02, amendments of Part 13 Fire Prevention Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mrs. Teener.
Mr. Hall.
One of two, please.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 13-21. Temporary ordinance 14-21.
An ordinance of the City of Lancaster to repeal and replace existing Lancaster Codified Ordinance 1125.05, private swimming pools of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Lancaster, and to declare an emergency. Offered by Mr. Hall, seconded by Mr. McDaniel.
Mr. Hall.
One of two, please.
First of two readings on temporary ordinance 14-21. There are further ordinances to come before our city council this evening. If not, we have no tabled legislation tonight. Is there unfinished business? If not, we'll move to new business. And not to put her on the spot too much, but again, we'll welcome Ms. Kreitz and maybe just allow you to take a moment to let folks know who you are and what you do and why you're serving, and take it away.
Sure. My name's Christina Kreitz. I'm graduated from Lancaster, grew up here with my family. Just moved back about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I just want to serve and give back to my community, be involved in the future.
That's great. Thank you very much. And welcome once again. Other new business this evening.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. President, I think that it's really important to express gratitude and appreciation when the moment arises. And I just want to say that 2 weeks ago, a squad was dispatched, to be more specific, crew number 3, from house number 3, was dispatched to 1435 Beverly Hills Drive. The 66-year-old resident of that particular house was experiencing some physical distress. His wife was fairly distraught. The squad arrived in really an amazingly short period of time. They assessed the situation, determined that the resident was in the early stages of having a heart attack. They stabilized the situation, they calmed the wife, and immediately transported me to Fairfield Medical Center. And as it turned out, I had 100% blockage in the main artery supplying blood to my heart. Without the incredible competence, professionality, and compassion from the squad, more specifically crew number 3, house number 3, I could either be dead or significantly disabled. But as a result of their efforts and the incredible care that I got at Fairfield Medical Center, I sustained no heart damage. So this is an example of at least a real world example to me for why the passage of the levy that we had on the ballot is so important to the residents of Lancaster. We have a great safety force, and I am beyond appreciative for what they did for me.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you for sharing that, and we hope that all is well now with you, and appreciate you sharing your experience with our great fire and EMS service.
They were amazing.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chief, to you and to your team for all you guys do. All right. Further new business. Ms. Bobbitt.
I think it should come under new business, but we need to address that Holly's not gonna be on the sit any longer.
I didn't think about that one. Good job.
Yeah. Because we don't want that to go, we want our representation on there.
We sure do. City Council gets a representative on the Special Improvement District, and whatever the pleasure of council is, whether we want to let folks think about who that might be, or if someone's ready to make a motion and accept that position tonight.
Can we question if somebody would like to be on there?
That'd be fine.
Since Mrs. Kreitz lives, I think, in the 5th Ward, and since she's a 5th Ward representative, I think she would be perfect. I'd like to make that motion if she
Just keeps
would
getting better and
accept
better,
it.
doesn't it, Ms. Kreitz?
I mean,
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Ms. Kreitz to the Special Improvement District, which is the downtown organization that's responsible for economic development and placemaking and a multitude of other things, including Destination Downtown Lancaster, which facilitates all of the events downtown. So
And you have to clean Fountain Square Park.
yeah, you got to go down once a week and clean up the. No, I'm kidding. You don't. She thought I was serious. That's terrible. That's terrible.
And you notice none of us like raised our hand.
Yeah,
to
that was
wanna
pretty
do
fast
it.
on that second there. So we have a motion and a second to appoint Ms. Kreitz. Ms. Kreitz, before we take the vote, are you willing to serve?
Of course.
Okay. Very good. So a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion to appoint Ms. Kreitz to the Special Improvement District? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. We gotta do a voice thing?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. James?
Yes.
Mr. Matlin?
Yes.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Mr. Stoughton?
Yes.
And Mrs. Teener.
Yes.
Very good. The motion passes 9-0. Congratulations, Ms. Kreitz. I think that might be it for now. I don't think we're gonna put you on anything else for now.
Until
Very
next
good.
meeting.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Bobbitt, for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Very good. Is there other new business this evening? All right, if not, we'll ask that the clerk read our announcement of scheduled meetings.
Upcoming meetings, April 26th, meeting following May 10th, both meetings here at 6:30 PM in council chambers. Upcoming committee meetings for the next 30 days, Water Pollution Control, April 14th at 8 AM at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Law, April 14th at 9:30 AM at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Finance, April 26th at 6 PM here in council chambers. Safety, May 7th at 7:30 AM at City Hall 1897 Conference Room. Finance, May 10th at 6 PM here in council chambers. And finally, Water Pollution Control, May 12th at 8 AM at the City Hall 1897 Conference Room.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any bills this evening?
There is one PNC for publication of legislation in the MNCO paper for $71.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bill.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pay the bill. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there a need for an executive session this evening? Seeing none, a motion to adjourn is in order.
Mr. President, I would like to make that a motion to adjourn.
And I'd like to second that
We have a
motion.
motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Please make sure you sign your legislation with the clerk, and have a great day. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
There is no place like Lancaster, Ohio, and Fairfield County, and like you, I am proud to call them home. As a longtime resident of Lancaster and graduate of Lancaster High School, this community is important to me, and I want to provide superior customer service, professionalism, integrity, and honesty at the Connor Insurance Agency. I am committed to supporting local programs and projects through my volunteer work and board membership with several organizations. It has been a great honor to work with all the first responders throughout Lancaster, Fairfield County, and the state of Ohio to put on Kids and Cops Day, to be a part of Shop with a Cop alongside the Lancaster Police Department and JFS. and to help Lancaster Public Education Foundation raise funds to support our local public schools and teachers. These men and women work hard to protect and support our community, and I would like to take this moment to say thank you for all they do. My goal as a business owner and insurance agent is to provide my clients with the most appropriate services and coverage for their needs at a competitive rate. As an independent agent, I have several carriers to choose from so I can customize your insurance coverage to fit your needs and desires. I strive to make sure there are no gaps in your coverage that could be harmful, and just as important, that you are not overinsured. I look forward to serving your insurance needs now and in the future. At Connor Insurance, we are here to serve you by protecting what is important to you. Please contact my office at 740-654-2848 for a full list of services and carriers, or visit my website, ConnorInsuranceAgency.com.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.